Hello, my name is Georgina Mitchell and I'm the hypnotherapist here at Hypfocus Therapies. I'm going to be making a series of recordings just to give a few tips about how to manage different issues, and today's recording is going to center around anxiety. Now, I do see clients for a variety of issues. I saw a number of clients today for diverse reasons, but the main reason that people come to see me is for help in overcoming anxiety, and I've got several years experience in working with people to help them manage and overcome anxiety so that they can live more fully without the restrictions that anxiety can sometimes place upon people. Now, a little bit of anxiety is normal. We need it. It's part of our survival mechanism. We want to have that response. If we're walking across the road and a car comes hurtling towards us, we want a quick response. We want to get out of that way as quickly as we can. But we don't want that anxiety to be maintained at such a high level all the time. We don't want to be in a hypervigilant state. And we certainly don't want to have anxiety or panic attacks triggered if we're, going about our daily life, or even doing something unusual like catching a flight or going on a long drive or encountering a strange dog in the street. All of those things that can trigger anxiety for people, even going to a party, being around people you don't know so well, all of those things that people with anxiety will be familiar with. Now, one of the things that I notice in most of my anxiety clients is that they tend to be quite high achieving perfectionist people, and they push themselves quite hard. And what seems to go along with that is the internal critic. This critic who is constantly picking holes in everything that they're doing. Nothing is ever quite good enough. And of course, that constant criticism begins to wear on them, as it would on anyone. Because what we fail to realize quite often is that speaking to ourselves in that critical way has the same effect on us as if it was coming from another person. So you can imagine what it would feel like to be followed around by somebody all day who was constantly in our ear criticizing us, saying, why didn't you do this? And you should have done that. And what are you doing that for? If we were working with somebody like that, we'd report them to HR. We certainly wouldn't think it was an acceptable way for somebody to behave towards us. And yet we accept it from ourselves, and we talk to ourselves in this kind of derisive way all the time. So one of the most effective ways for curbing the effects of anxiety is to become more aware of that inner critic and to soften it and to learn to speak to yourself internally with more compassion, as if you were mentoring yourself, as if you were a valued employee. If you had a valued employee, how would you speak to them? If you wanted to keep them with you because you knew that they were going to add value to your organization, you'd treat them with great respect if you wanted to hang on to them. And this is how you should treat yourself. When we speak to ourselves with more compassion, we're less likely to go down into that anxiety spiral. If you say things to yourself like, okay, if you make a mistake, what can I learn from that? What can I do about it? How can I do it differently the next time? That's really all that needs to be said. We don't need to beat ourselves up. Beating ourselves up, some people are under the impression that by criticizing themselves and beating themselves up constantly, that they're somehow going to improve their performance. Actually, the reverse is true. And if you're an anxious person and you look back over your history, I think you'll find that there are no incidences where beating yourself up in that way really did help you. And if you were to think again and think, well, what if I'd been more constructive and more compassionate towards myself? Would I have had a better outcome? I think it's quite likely that you might come to the conclusion that yes, you would. So one of the best tips I give all of my clients is to be more compassionate towards themselves. Now, this is easier said than done. It's a skill. And if we haven't been brought up to have that skill, it can take a little while to learn it and get used to doing that. But it is definitely worth the effort. So I highly recommend that you practice that. And just as a very quick tip before I close off for today, often when we have anxiety, the first thing that we do is we get into a very shallow breathing state. And that shallow breathing really feeds into the anxiety cycle, because it's sort of signaling our brain that we are in fight and flight mode and that we're in some kind of danger. And then our brain gets into a loop where it's kind of sending adrenaline and cortisol to our body, and that gets us into that anxiety loop. So one of the best tips and quick tips is to simply breathe slowly and deeply through your nose. Breathe in through your nose, slowly counting to 7. Pause for a moment, exhale very slowly, counting to 11. And just imagine a wave of relaxation washing over you as you do that. And repeat that a few times. You'll find that your body begins to relax and respond to that. So I hope those two tips are helpful or informative for you today. And I hope if you've been criticizing yourself and speaking to yourself harshly, that you'll consider being a little bit more compassionate and more constructive towards yourself. And I think you'll enjoy the benefits of it before too long. So that's it for today. I hope you'll come back and listen to further tips that I'll be posting in due course. Thank you. Bye.